Okay, I'm calling Tom Seaborn. Hey,
Hello?
Tom.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out.
Am I okay right now?
Yep, good
Okay,
now.
okay, good. How you doing today, buddy?
Good. How's everything?
Oh, it's going pretty good. What would you like to talk about today about a good health tip for everybody?
You know what I see, Jeff? I see this day in and day out that students, older folks, everybody, they overtrain. They're overzealous. They're trying to get in shape for the spring, for bathing suit season, and they're hitting it hard every single day, and they're not giving enough recovery time. And, when you're hammering the same muscle group in the weight room, or you're doing sprints every day, or taking a spinning class every day, your muscles need a time to recover, including your heart muscle. And that's why it's recommended to do only maybe 2 or 3 hard spinning workouts a week, and to space them out as far apart as possible. And then, of course, you, as well as everybody else, knows that when you train each muscle group, as far as in the gym, to only hit each muscle group a maximum of twice a week. And, even the cardio training that people come up with on their own, they may come up with some sort of a sprint routine, like they'll sprint to a tree and then recover till the next tree. That's fine to do 2 or 3 times a week, but if they do that every day, those muscle fibers don't have a chance to recover, and then their heart is not recovering properly, and they may be overtraining.
Well, that is a fact because I've overtrained more than a few times in my life, and I kept seeing not just myself, but I knew another girl that did the same thing. You have a tendency to swell up a little bit, like become puffy, and for whatever reason, your body can't get rid of the lactic acid like it normally should. Have you seen that happen?
Yeah. Okay. And another thing, something that is a really easy trick to discover if you're overtraining is to just take your heart rate every morning. When you wake up, your resting heart rate shouldn't be above normal. If it's 10 beats above your normal resting heartbeat, like let's say your normal resting heart rate is 72 beats per minute, but then you one morning you wake up and you take your resting heart rate and it's 82. Well, that should be either a rest day or what's called active recovery, where you're moving around but not sprinting or doing more damage that doesn't allow your body to recover. And you're correct that, inflammation is going to occur when you hammer your joints or your muscles to the point that they don't have time to recover, and that may be what you're referring to with the swelling, maybe in your case. But yeah, if you feel joint pain, if you feel lethargic, if you don't feel like training, or even if you feel like training but your heart rate's up, that may be a time to take a day off, or at least to cut down on the intensity of your workout.
I've always heard that if you take 2 days off in a row, 2 designated days in a row to take off, that is usually pretty good 48-hour recovery time.
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing. But you're exactly right when it comes to hardcore. You may have seen in the literature high intensity, HIIT, high intensity type training. When we do anything that stresses the heart or the muscles, and you're correct that you need at least 2 days generally. I mean, what, Jeff, I've got to admit, there's always the exception to the rule. And, whenever we spout a principle, then there's going to be some guy that says, well, I only take 1 day off between workouts and I'm fine. But the harder a person trains, then the more recovery they need before that next workout where they're doing the same thing.
Well, I know we're talking about general conditioning, but if you have a high-end athlete, like some of your bodybuilders and some of your sprinters, and then people that are, like fighters, I mean, they have to train all the time just to keep their edge. Is there such a thing as getting used to a workout or your body becoming accustomed to the routine, and then it needs maybe a little more than your average person to keep that edge or to keep moving forward?
Yeah, that's interesting. With MMA and training, like you're saying, like hardcore bodybuilders, sometimes training twice a day. What everybody should remember, though, MMA guys, bodybuilders, all of them, is that the body increases the muscle size during the recovery period, not while they're hammering that muscle group. So that's why recovery time is important. So that if you're an MMA guy and you're training, let's say you're doing your weight training in the morning, you're punching and kicking the pads in the bag in the mid-afternoon, and then in the evening you're doing your grappling, that can work out fine if you're making sure to spread out, so because you're doing 3 different activities. So maybe you do that on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But if the guy's weight training every single day, unless he's targeting different muscle groups, which is kind of hard to do when you're doing MMA, the type of weight training should be explosive, full body type of moves, not just biceps curls. So yeah, those guys should definitely take some days off of the weight room. But you're correct that, like, let's say they need to keep that technical knowledge up. So they're playing around on the mat and all that, and they just have to be careful that when they're doing their mat work, that they're not overtraining those same muscles that they worked out in the gym that morning.
Well, you brought up an interesting point, because I know you lift weights. I've known you to lift weights most of your life. Did you ever find out the combination of weight training and karate, which both of us were in, sometimes seemed to be counterproductive?
No, I felt the opposite. I really believe that weight training. Well, look at a guy like Joe Louis. That
right.
I mean, and most real highly skilled martial artists, we including Bruce Lee. Think about Bruce Lee, who was one of the first to show that when you strengthen a muscle, it becomes faster.
Right.
And when you make that muscle stronger, it also becomes more powerful, because speed times force equals power. So yeah, in my personal case, I think the weight room was great, because what it did for me, and maybe some of my students and a lot of my colleagues, is that it also strengthens the muscle around the joints so that the injuries don't mount up as quickly.
Well, I did a lot of weightlifting also, plus martial arts, bag work, and everything. My concern was always the lactic acid and the joint pain. In other words, the explosion coming back up through your arm, like on your elbow, your shoulder, and then the same thing with your knees and your hips and places like that. That's what I meant when I said counterproductive. In other words, is it something you have to build up to? Or like if you take off for a while, then come back, you have to kind of slowly or gradually work back into a routine? Otherwise,
yeah,
you're going to be...
You're right that with any type of training, you start slow, progress gradually. But let me dispel a myth, and tell me if we're going over too long here. But
no, that's okay.
Lactic acid, lactic acid, lactate is a good thing, and by that I mean when you feel the burn, that's not lactate, that's hydrogen ions, and lactate is there concomitant, meaning it's there at the same time. But lactate actually converts back into glycogen, which just means that it's sugar for your next high-intensity move, if you're hitting a bag or if you're doing sprints on a bike or whatever. So lactic acid, lactate is a good thing, because, again, it's fuel for your muscles.
So that's what...
The type of...
Go ahead. That's what getting in shape is like. In other words, when you feel like you're getting in shape, would that have lactic acid be a part of that as far as turning into glucose?
Well, what you're doing is you're tolerating those hydrogen ions, and then the lactate is you're able to also handle more lactate in your muscles without giving up too soon. So yeah, you're getting in better shape the more lactate that you can tolerate. But what you might be thinking about is what's called delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, which is the type of pain you feel from your workout a couple days later.
Right.
Because you've actually caused micro tears in your muscle and that inflammation that we talked about earlier. So yeah, I mean, think about lactate as being a good thing. You're looking for the burn. Now, the burn isn't lactate. That's a buffer. Lactate's a buffer. The hydrogen ions are causing the burn, but the burn is good. And like you said, as you become more fit, you're able to tolerate that lactate and the hydrogen ions. And so then you're able to work more toward and getting into your what's called your anaerobic threshold, meaning when you're huffing and puffing and burning. That's what you want to be able to tolerate, that feeling for as long as you can. Okay,
now is there such a thing as getting used to it, or is your body just processing it better, more efficiently? Or
that's a great you stated it beautifully. Both. Some people don't feel the lactic, that hydrogen ion burn. One of the highest level athletes that came out of Dallas, Lance Armstrong, he was able to tolerate lactate better than maybe most human beings, let alone cyclists. Not only that, he was able to disperse his lactate better, and then finally his VO2 max, meaning how much how much oxygen he can get to his muscles, is higher than almost everybody on the planet too. So you combine those three things with his mental attitude, and that's why he won the Tour de France so many times.
Well, he started out young, and his heart was oversized, and for his frame. In other words, like he was. What do you think it was genetic, or do you think he earned all that ability cardiovascular wise?
Oh, it's definitely both. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It was he had the engine, and then boy, he worked hard after that too. So you can't take anything away from him. And the fact that he was also tactically a master, putting it all together to have all of those wins is still truly amazing to me.
Right. Well, that sounds like a pretty good topic for today. I know it's helping me out. Whether anybody else out there that hears this gets any benefit from it, I know I do every time that we talk, because I'm always looking to trying to find something new. In other words, like, okay, I think I know everything, but I don't. So therefore, what else should I learn to help apply to my training at my age today? Or when I'm having a problem like hitting a brick wall, joint pain or fatigue or something like that, trying to sort it out mentally helps you out a whole lot, so that you can make your adjustment on whatever level that you need to help you sustain your workouts, instead of getting discouraged and saying, hey, I'm just getting old, this sucks, I quit.
Exactly.
All right. Well, listen,
Well said.
I appreciate the comment again today, and we'll get another one next week. You have a good day, Mr. Seaborn, and I appreciate your comments.
Good talking to you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.